Hey, good afternoon. Have I got a treat for you today? I decided to do another candy recipe since my first one is so popular, and it is, going to be Valentine's soon. And I'll tell you what, I tested this recipe on the same group of people that had tested the gummy candy, and the gummies made it till the end of the day. This stuff was gone in 5-10 minutes. It was just whoosh. Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to make creamy caramels. For the hardware, you're going to need a few things. You will need, at minimum, a 3-quart saucepan, preferably 3.5 or 4 if you've got it. And the reason for this is that working with hot sugar, if you respect it, is fine, but you've always got to take care of this stuff. You can't walk away from it, and it can burn quite badly. So it's really important that you not have any small kids or pets running around, and that you're going to commit to watching this for the whole time, okay? Because I'll show you at one point it is possible for it to boil over, and you don't want to have that happen, all right? So you also will need a candy thermometer. You might notice I've got a new one here. The one I always used broke during the testing of this recipe. Oh well, but I guess everything changes, eh? And this is actually a much better one than I had. So I do know that the price range on these runs from usually $6 or $7 for a cheap one, which is what I had, to $20-25 for a really good one, which is what I have now. So maybe I'll be making even more candy, who knows. Alright, you're going to need a wooden spoon. You're going to need an 8x8 tinfoil cake pan. And the reason I do insist that you use this instead of a heavier one is that you want this to cool off fairly quick. You will need 2 strips of parchment paper that are cut about the same width as the pan. Now, I'll show you how to set this up, and you want to do this as the first thing, because once you're focused on the hot sugar, if you're a little stressed out or whatever, you don't want to have it all ready to pour and then, oh geez, I didn't get the pan ready. Okay, so we'll do that first. So lay 1 strip across, about even visually. Press it down into the bottom of the pan. Give it a rough fold, and another rough fold on the side. Do the same thing on the other side. And then what you do is lay the other one on top in the same way. And that's just ready to go for the hot sugar when we get there. Always clip your thermometer to the pot before you start. This one is safe to put down to the bottom. I still am going to leave it up because this is going to boil up really high. It could go as high as that, okay? Which is one of the reasons why I said you really got to keep an eye on this stuff. Okay, so get your thermometer ready before you put in the ingredients, which are so combine both sugars and the salt. There's a 2nd teaspoon. Break it down, break down the brown sugar a bit. Mix it up a little bit. Add the heavy cream. Now I make sure I always give this a good stir before I turn the heat on. Because that way if there's any chunks, and if you have to, that's why it's good to get a nice one with a clip on it, that if you do have to rotate it to get at chunks of sugar in the bottom, you can do that. So once you have that all mixed up, put it on around medium heat and start stirring. You are going to be with this for the whole time until it comes to a boil. And even at that point, I would not walk too far away from this, alright? I've got the thermometer up high enough that you can see that I can slide the spoon under it. Okay, that clip, I wish it was a little nicer, but it should last. We'll find out. Here's a little tip I'll share with you. When I'm making candy, what I do is, I don't get so close I'll burn myself, but what I do is I make sure that I get close enough to the candy that I can listen to it. And what I mean by that is while you're stirring this, okay, if you're doing a good job, after a bit, all you're going to hear is the sound of the wooden spoon on the bottom of the pan. Alright? So if you've got a quiet background, you're listening carefully, and you've missed anything, you can actually hear the crystals, the sugar crystals on the bottom of the pan. Okay? And it is important that you get all of that picked up and dissolved before it comes to a boil, because you're going to be way too busy after that. I'll give you a bit of a close-up here. It's just about ready to come to a boil. You can tell because it's starting to form bubbles on the sides of the pan that stay there even when I'm stirring. So at this point, become very attentive. Do not walk away from this for any reason. And as soon as it hits full boil, I'll take the spoon out, because you're not going to stir this at all when it's reaching its cooking temperature. Okay, so I got this stirred up to the last second. Take the spoon out now. Take a quick read. It's at 210. The final temperature is 245 Fahrenheit or 118 degrees centigrade. At this point, once it hits full boil, turn it right down to low immediately. Okay? Because it will continue to rise in the pan. Okay, this looks fairly under control. But one pointer though, if you think for any reason that this may boil over if your pan is too small or if you've got the heat too high, just move it off the heat until the level of the candy drops in the pan, because you do not want this boiling over and hitting the burner. Now that it looks like it's not going to boil over, I am going to nudge up the heat slightly so it'll cook a little quicker. And you can see how fast it goes up when you turn up the heat just a touch. See how fast that responds? Now the good part about this is that the danger point is only at the beginning, because once it hits the level that it's going to stay at, as the moisture in the cream evaporates, the mass of the candy will only fall, okay? So as long as you got it under control when you're starting, you're fine. I am going to turn this down again right to low and take it off the heat, because as you can see it's getting a little too close for comfort. That's okay, that's safe to put back. Now it's around 210, 215 Fahrenheit. And this can seem pretty boring right now, but as the moisture evaporates, you'll reach a point where the temperature will shoot up pretty quick. So it is important that you still keep an eye on this stuff, alright? So the temperature has finally reached 220. It's quite slow at the beginning, and you do have to watch it, because I was fiddling with the temperature, kept going up and down. But now that it's reached this temperature, it's pretty stable. And as you can see, the appearance of the candy is changing as the temperature rises. It's at 230 Fahrenheit now, and you can see that the appearance of the surface has changed. You know, and actually it's really funny, that's how I knew that my candy thermometer was broken, because it told me it had reached 250, and I looked at the top of the candy and I was like, no, that's not 250. Okay, and it turns out I ended up making caramel sauce, but hey, I'll save that for another recipe, okay? It's at 240 Fahrenheit, and again, the appearance of the candy has changed. It will go very fast right now, so you got to keep an eagle eye on this stuff. It has just hit 245, and when I said it goes fast, this is less than a minute and a half for it to go the last 5 degrees. So what I do now is take it off, turn off the heat immediately, remove the thermometer. I just poured the caramel in the pan. Sorry, I thought the record button was on. But it's just simple as this. Just pour it straight into the middle of your prepared pan with the paper. Now you'll notice the bottom is starting to set up of the pan already. You'll also notice there's a couple of drops of fat from the cream that is on the top of the caramel. It's tempting to kind of stir this or mix it in. Do not do this. The caramel will not set correctly, and this, yes, will resorb into the mass over the next couple hours. Caramels have been setting up for over an hour, about an hour and a half now. As you'll notice, there is still a bit of grease on top, so what I do to get rid of this before I cut them is just get a brown paper lunch bag and just lay that on top and let it sit there for a minute. This is sort of like as if you had fish and chips. The brown paper picks up the grease really nicely and does not stick to the candy. After you dab those off, just pick up the whole pan, get a cutting board, turn it over, and just peel the paper off. There you go. It's a lot easier to do this when they're not completely hard. And you get to have a little taste. Wow. That came out just nice, thank you. If you don't wrap them, as I discovered the first time, I cut these all up really nice and put them in a plastic bag. And when I got to my destination, it all glommed into one big mass, which did not stop anybody from eating them, by the way. But it's a lot nicer if you just do them like this. So cut off a strip. They're still really, really soft. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about the cutting board jiggling on this, eh? Tear off the strip of parchment paper. So cut off pieces of paper. Keep blocking the light. Oh, and by the way, you want to get these out of the house as soon as you can, because once you just start eating them, you may not stop. You'll notice a couple have already disappeared. My bad. Okay, so just fold the paper over. You don't have to get real fancy. What you're doing is just making sure they don't stick together. And I'll just use the empty pan to hold the finished ones in. It's not actually necessary to oil the knife. If you just kind of rock it while you cut through it, they'll separate quite nicely. So I nearly got these finished cutting up. I'll just get these wrapped up and get them out of the house. Well, probably tomorrow. A couple more might vanish overnight, I'm not sure. Anyways, so there's my creamy caramels. Thank you so much for watching my recipe, and I do hope you try them and like them as much as I do.